Hello, welcome back to Revision with Miss Sweet. Today we are exploring the poem Remains, looking specifically at the literary devices used. Literary devices are techniques that writers use to convey a deeper meaning, express ideas, or emphasize themes in their writing. Remains uses: enjambment, colloquialism, repetition, sibilance, caesura, polysyndeton. We will explore the effect of each device through the video. Remains is made up of 7 unrhymed quatrains, 4-line stanzas, and 1 final, unrhymed couplet, a 2-line stanza. At first glance, the poem seems relatively organized. The stanzas are, for the most part, regular. But when actually reading through the poem, it becomes clear that there's chaos under the surface. Though the first 7 stanzas all have 4 lines, the speaker's phrases themselves often don't line up with the form at hand. That is, the speaker frequently enjambs lines or inserts jerky pauses in the middle of lines. The speaker even uses enjambment across stanza breaks, suggesting that the form here isn't actually as steady as it looks. The speaker is trying to keep things orderly, to tell this story in a logical way, but ultimately fails to do so. The final 2 lines, then, feel almost anticlimactic. The poem ends abruptly, sooner than the reader has come to expect. It feels as if the speaker suddenly has nothing left to say, or, perhaps, the speaker is so overwhelmed by guilt and trauma that continuing is impossible. The poem has no regular meter, and is written in free verse. This makes sense, given that it's meant to feel very casual and conversational. The speaker seems to be telling this tale off the cuff, and hasn't rehearsed any of these lines beforehand. As such, the poem is made up of lines that vary greatly in length and rhythm. One line does stand out from the rest, however, line 27, the longest line of the poem, which has 14 syllables. Not left for dead in some distant, sun-stunned, sand-smothered land. By this point in the poem, the speaker has transitioned from telling the story in a detached manner to seeming entirely consumed and overwhelmed by trauma and guilt. This run-on line might suggest the way that speaker's thoughts are running out of control. The sheer length of this line suggests that the speaker is becoming increasingly frantic and distraught. The poem doesn't feel overly literary or poetic, but rather like an ordinary person telling a story. This is deliberate on the part of the poet. This is a poem about the horrific, everyday realities of war, and the language takes care not to glorify what's happening. That said, rhyme does appear occasionally throughout the poem. The clearest example comes in the 7th stanza, where land in line 27 rhymes fully with sand in line 28. The final line of the poem, hands, rhymes as well. There's also a great deal of consonance in this stanza, as well as assonance of the long I sound that feels a bit like rhyme in lines 25 and 26. He's here in my head when I close my eyes, dug in behind enemy lines. Altogether, this creates a heightening of the poem's language that appropriately appears at a moment of heightened emotion. The speaker has begun the poem with a remarkably casual tone, but here gets lost in and overwhelmed by the traumatic memories being described. The entrance of rhyme reflects that shift in tone. Enjambment is the continuation of a sentence or clause across a line break in poetry. Enjambment heightens the conversational nature of the poem. The sentences aren't forced into aligning perfectly with the poem's line or even stanza breaks. This mimics natural speech patterns, while, in certain moments, also indicating that the speaker isn't as comfortable talking about this as it might seem. Line 1 breaks, just before the speaker says why these soldiers were sent out. The enjambment subtly echoes the content here. It's as if the soldiers are sent out across the line break, the blank space representing their lack of agency. They are just following orders. If they're sent out, they must go, even if they're not sure why yet. Colloquialism is the use of informal words or phrases in writing or speech. Colloquialisms are usually defined in geographical terms, meaning that they are often defined by their use within a dialect, a regionally defined variant of a larger language. The speaker describes the aftermath of a soldier's actions in combat, using colloquial language to depict the gritty reality of war. The soldier recounts the event with phrases like "we got sent out," "like a pedal," and "sort of inside out," capturing the casual vernacular of someone trying to process a traumatic experience. The use of colloquialism adds a rawness and authenticity to the poem, immersing the reader in the speaker's perspective and the harshness of war's aftermath. Repetition plays a crucial role in emphasizing the haunting nature of the soldier's memories and the lasting impact of his actions. The phrase "I see" is repeated throughout the poem, creating a relentless echo of the soldier's traumatic recollections. This repetition underscores the inescapable nature of the soldier's guilt and psychological torment, as he is constantly haunted by the vivid imagery of the incident. Additionally, the repetition of the word "probably" in the line, "probably armed, possibly not," highlights the uncertainty and moral ambiguity surrounding the soldier's actions, further complicating his sense of responsibility and culpability. Overall, repetition in Remains serves to intensify the poem's emotional depth and convey the enduring psychological scars of war. Repetition of the S phoneme to create a hissing sound. Sibilance is skillfully employed to create a sense of tension and unease, reflecting the speaker's internal turmoil and the violence of the incident he describes. For instance, in the line, "his blood shadow stays on the street," the repeated S sounds evoke a sense of hissing, mimicking the sound of blood seeping and staining the pavement. This creates a visceral image that lingers in the reader's mind, emphasizing the lasting impact of the soldier's actions. Similarly, in the phrase "tosses his guts back into his body," the repeated S sounds emphasize the brutality and chaos of the scene, as if the speaker is hissing out the gruesome details. A caesura is a pause that occurs within a line of poetry, usually marked by some form of punctuation such as a period, comma, ellipsis, or dash. This caesura serves to emphasize the chaotic nature of the scene and the split-second decisions made in the heat of battle. Additionally, in the line, "his bloody life in my bloody hands," the repetition of "bloody" along with the caesura created by the line break after his intensifies the speaker's sense of guilt and responsibility, as if he is grappling with the weight of his actions in a moment of reflection. These caesuras effectively punctuate the poem, adding depth and nuance to its themes of trauma and moral ambiguity. Polysyndeton is a figure of speech in which coordinating conjunctions, words such as "and," or "and," but that join other words or clauses in a sentence into relationships of equal importance. Polysyndeton is utilized to convey the chaotic and relentless nature of the soldier's memories and the overwhelming guilt he feels. But I blink, and he burst again through the doors of the bank, with his thick boots on, and his glove, and his cap, and he's pointing with his gun, and he's shouting. Here, the repeated use of "and" creates a sense of urgency and intensity, mimicking the rapid-fire sequence of events as the soldier recalls the robbery. The relentless repetition of "and" serves to heighten the tension of the scene, emphasizing the soldier's inability to escape or forget the traumatic event. Additionally, it underscores the fragmented and disjointed nature of his memories, highlighting the chaotic aftermath of his actions. Through the use of polysyndeton, Armitage effectively captures the disorienting and overwhelming experience of post-traumatic stress. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you found this useful.